Today we're talking Supra. And no, we're not a little late to the conversation. There's a lot you haven't been told. That thing killed the entire Supra nameplate. And that thing only exists because BMW has a crush on the Toyota Mirai. Ew. And then there's this BMW M2 CS, which seems like it has nothing to do with the Supra, but it does. And I'm about to tell you why. The Mk5 Supra is not new. You know all about it. It's a BMW Z4 with Toyota styling draped over it. For 2021, it gets some subtle suspension revisions, but also the B58 engine that was already in the Z4. That means it makes 47 more horsepower. Not that it really needed any more horsepower, it was already stupid fast. All right, let's cut the foreplay and get to it.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Makes 1,000 horsepower and blows flames, just like every other Mk4 these days. But this thing's stock out of the box? Ooh, it's a hell of a G-force generator. Power is present and accounted for. And grip. Balance. And brakes. But there's a problem. And its initials are M2. So you want to play, huh? Oh man. Well, they're evenly matched in the straight. I guess that's what weight will do. Oh my God, I cannot get away from it. All right, no contest in the corners. That M2 has so much more grip that he's just on me. I have less lag and an automatic with shorter gears, so I beat him on the way out of the corner. And in the corners, sloppy, Jason. Sloppy. Oh man, he's just on me. That M2 has so much more grip that he's keeping up with me, and he's playing around. This isn't gonna end well. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to call it before there are BMW pieces everywhere. The fact is, the M2 CS outperforms the Supra in every performance metric, and it does so in a much more usable package. Take your average cell phone and chop it in half. That's the difference in length between those two cars, and yet the M2 manages to fit in a whole back seat, big enough for both of your snot-nosed brats. and 40% more cargo room for all your stuff when your significant other kicks you out for spending $85,000 on a stupid little car. But you can actually see out of the M2, and you can get in and out of it without concussing yourself, something that is completely impossible to do in the Supra. And the best part, it comes with a manual transmission and a warranty. This is also not a new car. The M2 is in its last year, and the CS is its final variant. Now fortified with the M3's 444 horsepower engine, it makes a hellacious noise. It has carbon ceramic brakes, carbon fiber hood and roof, and lightweight seats that probably weigh 4 pounds more. With a wheelbase 9 inches longer than the Supras, but you're not sitting on the back axle, so it doesn't feel like you're driving a skid steer. This is not just BMW's best car of the moment. This is BMW. It's a direct descendant of the 2002. A tall, dorky, obnoxious little brat of a two-door sedan. It is not a sports car. For the record, BMW has never made a great sports car. BMW's sports cars are incredibly good at losing comparison tests. Z3, Z4, Z4, and then Z4 again, and even, I hate to say it, Z1 and Z8. It's because BMW has, with the exception of the M1 supercar, always just deconstructed a sports sedan and thrown its component parts into a sports car looking package. That gives you all of the drawbacks of a sports car with none of the advantages. All thorn, no rose. That's a very different thing than building a sports car from the ground up. And that's why this two-seater weighs 1,100 pounds more than a Mazda Miata, which also seats two. Look, if your sports car has so much sound deadening in it that you have to pipe in fake engine noise through the speakers just to hear the thing run, you failed the sports car brief. At least in the Z4, I can put the top down, and then I can hear that straight six. Oh, naturel. And it sounds great. And look, everything is better in a convertible. Oh. Other than the inherent joys of open-top motoring and that straight six, there's no joy here. Capability is not joy. That's the Supra's biggest problem, both of them. They're mechanically identical to cars that have real usability, but cost less. Cars like the 3 Series, or even the X3. Is it any wonder that the X3 outsells the 3 Series, which then outsells the Z4 plus Supra times like 5? No! The only reason you'd buy a Z4 is because it's a convertible. And the only reason you'd buy a Supra is because of how it looks. And that, that's a pretty cool story. A story that starts here at Toyota's CALTY Design Research Center, the birthplace of the FT1, one of the most spectacular concept cars you'll ever see. It was designed by CALTY's president before it went on to become the Supra. Okay, we mask off, right? I feel like I've just taken my bra off. I feel very, very flappy right now and naked. Where did this design come from?
We went back and looked at the iconic Supras, and we also looked at the 2000 GT, which was one of our amazingly beautiful sports cars back in the day. And that car also had an inline six, so it's very much in the lineage of Supra DNA.
The FT1 is Supra unconstrained. Exactly what this car would have looked like if its design didn't need to be draped onto the hardpoints of a BMW Z4. A hardpoint is a critical engineering spot that cannot be moved, and these are typically set in stone early in the development of the car. The obvious ones are things like where the wheels are, where the engine is, and where the driver sits. But there are literally hundreds of other spots around which the body of the car needs to be draped.
A hardpoint is evil to designers. It's what engineering brings to the table, and this could be a hardpoint based on a manufacturing requirement. It could be a hardpoint based on a safety requirement. It's a hardpoint to keep the car within a certain size. So we have a number of hardpoints that we deal with when we design a car.
A good example of a hardpoint is the top of the shock tower. This determines the geometry and the amount of travel of the front suspension, and it cannot be moved or the whole car needs to be re-engineered. That means this is where the top of the fender is going to be.
FT1 is very stretched, it's very fluid, and has some elegance and some beauty, I think. And we had to get it mashed into a more compressed proportions. And then beyond that, we had hardpoints that we had to deal with for bumpers, for where the engine was sitting, cowl positions. It was a huge challenge.
One of the most controversial design features of the Supra is this rear fender flare, and that's because it goes so far into the door. In fact, if you open the door, you can see where the door is and then where the flare is tacked on the outside. Same thing over here on the body. This is flare. The body of the car is actually here. Why? Because the latch is the Z4's hardpoint. Let's not forget, this isn't a Toyota with a BMW supplied engine. This is a BMW supplied BMW with a Toyota badge on it. And BMW will do whatever it wants, including not giving Toyota its best bits. Want proof? If that's not the world's biggest from BMW to Toyota, I don't know what is. Compare and contrast the Z4's horn. Told ya. It's a tie this year, now that this thing has the full 382 horsepower version of this engine. Last year it had 335. Why? Well, it was BMW saying to Toyota. The other thing I noticed straight away, especially on the road, the Supra steering is way better than the Z4's. It has a perfect sense of straight ahead. It even has some on-center feel. And the effort curve is natural. Like, who knew BMW's chassis development team could actually tune power steering? So long as they have Toyota's engineers telling them what to do. Any difference is shades of gray. It has to be. These are mechanically identical cars. This thing turns in like it weighs nothing. Because its center of gravity is lower than the GT86, which is not even a Toyota. That's a Subaru. It's easy to criticize Toyota for slapping its badges all over cars that aren't Toyotas. And that's because Toyota was the biggest car company in the world for the majority of the previous 20 years. Of course they have enough money to develop a sports car. But let's talk about what happened the last time they did. Toyota's original Supra started out as something only slightly more than a 6-cylinder trim level for the 4-cylinder Celica. The price ballooned accordingly, and so did the weight, to the point that the Celica Supra was barely quicker than the 4-cylinder Celica. The complaints about too heavy and way too expensive stopped when the Mark II Celica Supra came out. The Supra was still a 6-cylinder version of the Celica. It was still too expensive and it was still too heavy, but this time, both the car buying public and the magazines decided it was worth it. Car and Driver magazine spent a year with this muscular looking thing and gushed all over it, using words like smitten, Jaguar E-Type, and a legend. Well, they were right about that. That praise paused when the third generation debuted. This was the first Supra that wasn't just a modified Celica. The Celica had switched to a front-wheel drive platform. The rear-wheel drive Supra was finally its very own model. It was still too expensive, but it wasn't merely just too heavy. It gained an outrageous 500 pounds over the last car. That didn't go over well. But by adding a turbocharger to the Supra, Toyota gave it enough power to make up for the weight gain. And it set the stage for the absolutely legendary Mk4 Supra, which shed some pounds thanks to some lightweight material and came in two strengths: naturally aspirated and twin sequential turbo versions of the world's most famous straight six, the 2JZ. And the Mk4 Supra also came with a V8 in the Lexus SC400. Those two cars shared the same basic platform, but the Lexus had a little bit of a longer wheelbase. But the fact that the Mk4 Supra was sold as a Lexus should tell you something about the relentless pursuit of perfection in its development. And Toyota nailed that perfection from start to finish. The Supra Turbo wasn't just fast, it was supercar fast. It took mid-engine supercars, punched them in the nose, stole their lunch money, and used it to buy Chablis. Because it was refined, and it was comfortable, and it was well built. It handled well, it was communicative, it did everything well. And that's just what the period reviews of this car said, and they didn't even know the best part. You could boost this thing to like 1,000 horsepower, and it says, yeah, more please. I just want to get it straight ahead so I can do that again. I think I'm underwear. I need new underwear. Whoa, God. I mean, look, this car is modified, as they all are, and it is unlike anything that any car company would ever put in production, because it's just absurd. But that's part of what makes this car a legend. You want to talk about a legend? This thing is a legend. It is possibly the biggest legend of all of the legends, and that's because it does this stuff without caring. Holy actual There is only one thing this Mk4 was terrible at: selling. It might have been a supercar at a budget price, but supercar buyers didn't seem to want a discount, and that left no one wanting the Supra. Its sales numbers were abysmal, peaking at about 1/10 of previous generations. Towards the end, Toyota cut the effective base price by 1/3, and nobody cared. Supra sales were so bad that it killed the business case for a Toyota sports car dead. And then the money-losing LFA buried it. So can you blame Toyota for not doing another sports car? No. And by the way, BMW wasn't going to do another Z4 until they came up with an indecent proposal. They called Toyota all, "We will build you a Supra if you let us look under the skirt of that beautiful Toyota Mirai." Ew! But BMW needed the hydrogen fuel cell technology for a variant of the X5 that's going into production in 2022. And by the way, bonus, the additional volume of sales from the Toyota variant would sell enough Z4s to pay for the development of the whole project. For Toyota, what's the risk? A bunch of journalists make fun of them for having a BMW in the showroom? There's already a Mazda and a Subaru in there. But the upside for Toyota is clear. Some guy walks in, sees a swoopy Supra in the corner and says, "Man, if they could build that thing, I'll take my Yaris with a sport pack." Blissfully unaware that the Yaris is a Mazda and the Supra is a BMW. Key point though, Toyota sells another car, and that's the goal. BMW Supra is a far sportier, more dramatic, more interesting, more spectacular looking, better driving, better steering two-seat GT than BMW's own version. And that's a really impressive feat. Is it a true successor to the Mk4 Supra? No, it beats up on sports sedans, not supercars. But this car's existence produced two sports cars that the world would otherwise not have had. And so, the Supra makes the world a better place.
Except, of course, there's an even better Supra on sale today. Think about the recipe for what makes a Mk4. It has a 3-liter straight six with 2 turbos on it that can accept like 3 times factory horsepower and not blow up. A manual transmission, a rear seat. It's a little too heavy, a little too expensive, and appeals to a small number of people. And puts a supercar-sized smile on your face. Oh, hello, M2. The successor to the Mk4 Supra was a BMW, but it's not the one with the Toyota badge on it. It's that one.
Oh, yes, I did. I did actually say that the BMW M2 makes a better Supra than the Supra itself. And if you think that's an outrageous statement, I've only just begun. And you're not going to hear about it unless you subscribe to the Hagerty YouTube channel and click the notification bell, or, follow me on Instagram or do whatever. But here's the thing. You could be the cool person who sends out the link to all of your friends, or you can be the recipient of all the links from your other cool friends. It's up to you.